before the word dinosaur even existed, before anyone knew these creatures had ever walked the earth. One bone changed everything. A single massive thigh fragment dug out of an English quarry would eventually force humanity to rewrite its understanding of life itself. This is the story of Megalosaurus, not the biggest, not the most famous, but the dinosaur that came first. And its story is stranger, messier, and more fascinating than most people realize. A name meant to impress. We're going back roughly 166 million years to the Middle Jurassic period. The land that would one day become England was a warm, humid world of ferns, cycads, and shallow seas, a far cry from the gray skies of today. Ruling over parts of this ancient landscape was a predator whose name, Megalosaurus, translates simply to great lizard. It's a fitting name, but it barely scratches the surface of why this animal matters. Megalosaurus wasn't just a great lizard. It was the very first dinosaur ever given a scientific name, making it, in a very real sense, dinosaur number one in the eyes of science. A mystery bone from the 1600s. Here's something most documentaries skip over. Pieces of Megalosaurus were being found long before anyone had the faintest idea what a dinosaur was. Fragments turning up in Oxfordshire's limestone quarries as early as the late 1600s were so strange that people had no framework to explain them. One particularly famous fossil, a chunk of a massive thigh bone, ended up in the hands of Robert Plot, a naturalist and the first keeper of Oxford's Ashmolean Museum back in 1676. Plot was baffled. His best guess? That it belonged to an enormous human, possibly a biblical giant. Later writers went even further, suggesting it might be a fossilized human testicle, an idea so odd it actually earned the bone a Latin nickname, Scrotum humanum. That name technically predates Megalosaurus by over a century, and paleontologists still occasionally joke about whether it should count as the real first dinosaur name. For well over 100 years, giant bones like this were explained away as elephants brought by Romans, biblical giants, or simply freaks of nature. Nobody was thinking reptile, because nobody yet believed reptiles could ever have grown that large. Enter William Buckland. The turning point came in the early 1800s. William Buckland, Oxford's first professor of geology and a clergyman himself, began collecting new jaw fragments, teeth, vertebrae, and limb bones from the same Oxfordshire quarries. Working alongside contemporaries like the anatomist Georges Cuvier, Buckland pieced together enough evidence to conclude this wasn't a giant human or a lost elephant. It was an enormous, extinct reptile. In 1824, Buckland formally described and named Megalosaurus, making it the first non-avian dinosaur to receive an official scientific name, years before the word dinosaur itself was even coined by Richard Owen in 1842. Technically speaking, Megalosaurus predates the very concept of dinosaur as a category, but Buckland's reconstruction, while groundbreaking, was riddled with errors. He pictured Megalosaurus as a colossal lizard-like quadruped, something like a 40-foot crocodile crossed with a monitor lizard capable of prowling both land and water. He also revised his size estimate upward, at one point suggesting the animal could be a third larger than his original guess. Because he was a devout clergyman, Buckland even framed the predator in religious terms, describing it as an instrument of divine mercy sent to end the suffering of aged and diseased animals in the natural world. Interestingly, Megalosaurus achieved a strange kind of pop culture fame almost immediately. Charles Dickens famously opened his novel Bleak House in 1852 by imagining a Megalosaurus waddling like an elephantine lizard up London's muddy streets. Proof that this dinosaur was already captivating the public imagination less than 3 decades after it was named. From 4 legs to 2, science corrected itself quickly once more. Fossils appeared. By the late 1800s, researchers had already begun to suspect Megalosaurus walked on 2 legs rather than 4, and that Buckland's size estimates had been wildly exaggerated. Throughout the 20th century, discoveries kept accumulating. One single excavation site alone yielded over 100 bones. Yet even with all this material, Megalosaurus remains what paleontologists call a frustratingly incomplete animal. No complete skull, no full skeleton, and critically, no confirmed skull, roof, or brain case has ever been found. Everything we know about its head shape is pieced together from scattered jaw fragments and isolated teeth. This incompleteness caused a different kind of chaos throughout the 1800s and 1900s. For decades, Megalosaurus became something of a dumping ground. Any large meat-eating dinosaur bone found anywhere in the world, from Europe to Africa to India, risked being lazily labeled a new species of Megalosaurus, simply because scientists didn't have a better category to place it in. At one point, more than 50 species had been assigned to the genus. Today, after painstaking review, only one is considered valid, Megalosaurus bucklandi, named in honor of Buckland himself. What Megalosaurus probably looked like. So, stripping away 2 centuries of guesswork, what do we actually know? A major reconstruction effort in 2010, led by paleontologist Roger Benson, pulled together every confirmed bone to build the most accurate picture yet. Megalosaurus emerges as a bipedal, carnivorous theropod somewhere between 6 and 9 meters long, roughly 20 to 30 feet, and weighing in the neighborhood of 1 metric ton, comparable to a modern European bison. That makes it smaller than headline predators like Tyrannosaurus or Spinosaurus, but it was still a heavyweight for its own era, one of the largest land predators anywhere on Earth during the Middle Jurassic. Its build tells an interesting story. Bone texture analysis suggests Megalosaurus was heavily muscled, with a skull that, despite missing pieces, appears to have been unusually deep and robust for its body size, hinting at serious bite force. Its teeth were long, blade-like, and backward curving, perfectly shaped for slicing through flesh rather than crushing bone. Its arms, while short, were thick and powerful, likely ending in 3 clawed fingers. Some researchers suspect Megalosaurus used these arms not just to grip struggling prey, but potentially to deliver slashing strikes at close range. Its legs, meanwhile, were sturdy but somewhat less robust than those of its close relative Torvosaurus, suggesting Megalosaurus may not have been built for blistering speed, but rather for power and ambush-style hunting. Footprints that tell a different story. Here's a detail rarely mentioned. Bones aren't the only evidence we have. At a site called Ardley in Oxfordshire, practically Megalosaurus's home turf, paleontologists uncovered an extraordinary set of fossilized trackways likely made by this very predator. Some of these prints suggest the animal was moving at a genuine, sustained run, not simply plodding along. It's rare to have both skeletal remains and footprints from a probable match at the same location, and it gives us a direct physical record of how this animal actually moved through its world, rather than a pure guess based on bone shape alone. Its family and its world. Megalosaurus lends its name to an entire family of theropods, the Megalosauridae, which includes at least 9 known genera, among them the formidable Torvosaurus. Members of this family are considered relatively primitive compared to later theropods, generally recognizable by their low, elongated skulls, and they were spread across multiple continents. Curiously, though, confidently identified Megalosaurus material has only ever been found in England, despite the family's global reach. 166 million years ago, that patch of England looked nothing like it does now. Picture a lush, humid landscape thick with ferns and ginkgo trees, dotted with lagoons and shallow seas, with some areas existing as scattered islands. It was a rich, diverse ecosystem. Long-necked sauropods like Cetiosaurus and Cardiodon grazed the vegetation, while armored stegosaurs rounded out the herbivore lineup, all of them potential prey for Megalosaurus. But being an apex predator didn't mean an easy life. Fossilized Megalosaurus bones bearing healed fractures suggest that hunting large, defended herbivores came at a real physical cost. This was not a risk-free existence. Megalosaurus also wasn't hunting alone in its ecosystem. Smaller theropods like Iliosuchus, along with contemporaries such as Cruxaceros and Streptospondylus, shared the same environment. Interestingly, evidence suggests these predators likely avoided direct competition by occupying different ecological niches rather than constantly clashing over the same prey, based on how widespread and common its remains are compared to these other predators. Most paleontologists regard Megalosaurus as the dominant predator of its particular time and place. The true top of the food chain. And dinosaurs weren't the only residents. The surrounding waters and skies were home to fish, pterosaurs, early crocodile relatives, and insects, some of which may well have occasionally crossed paths with a hunting Megalosaurus, even if direct evidence of that remains elusive. Why Megalosaurus still matters? It's easy to overlook Megalosaurus today, overshadowed by flashier, more complete dinosaurs discovered in the century since. But without Megalosaurus, the entire science of paleontology as we know it might have taken a very different path. It was the fossil that forced 19th century scientists to accept that the Earth had once been home to animals unlike anything alive today. Creatures large enough and strange enough to require an entirely new category of life. 2 centuries later, we're still learning from those same Oxfordshire quarries, still refining what this great lizard truly looked like. Incomplete as it is, Megalosaurus isn't just a footnote in dinosaur history, it's the opening chapter. If you enjoyed learning about the dinosaur that started it all, let me know in the comments which prehistoric creature you want covered next. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the ancient world. See you in the next video.